Let's talk about the whole point of whiskey. I know that's kind of a bold title, but I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I want to put together an episode on like bottle shares and spending time like drinking whiskey with other people and enjoying it as a group. And I thought, the idea of an episode titled bottle shares like doesn't really ring any bells, but the whole point of whiskey, now that is something I would click on. And arguably, this is the whole point of whiskey. So not just bottle shares, but sharing whiskey with people that you care about and really enjoying it and diving in and showing them whiskeys that you love, them showing you whiskeys that they love. That is kind of the whole point of whiskey. And this really got driven home for me at Kentucky Bourbon Festival this past year, because there's a couple different people going around and asking like, what's your favorite part of whiskey? What do you do this for? Why do you like this? And like the overwhelming response is the people. The people are the best part. And I totally, wholeheartedly agree with that. I think if you ask any whiskey enthusiast what's their favorite part of the hobby, if the people aren't the number one thing on their list, it's probably top five. Like most people, the best part is when you get to share it with other people. And don't get me wrong, I love sitting down, having a glass and like breaking free from my week and really relaxing, but it's just better when you've got good people with you. So let's talk about bottle shares. I want to talk about what you can expect from bottle share, how to plan one, like what you should bring, because me personally, I'm a really awkward guy and I'm like, what do I bring? Like, am I overthinking this? I want to make sure it's something good. I don't want to just bring Evan Williams bottled in bond. Like what do I do? So I want to talk about those sorts of things. And then we're just going to dive into it, like what you should expect and some helpful tips that I think will make it a little bit easier to plan your first bottle share or to attend your first bottle share. And if nothing else, I hope that listening to this episode inspires you to do more sharing with other people and enjoying of the whiskey as a group. But first, before I get into all of that, I have to take a moment to ask you to please check out the Patreon in the show notes below. The Patreon is the lifeblood of the podcast. This podcast lives and dies with the success of the Patreon page. And I'm so incredibly grateful to the people who are currently members of the Patreon page. We're not quite to our goals yet. Like we're missing the goals a little bit, but just what we have so far is so incredibly helpful. Like just the backbone that we have established on that Patreon page is so helpful to keep this podcast going. And if that's not enough convincing for you, we've got giveaways. We've got a huge giveaway coming up. If it's not already announced yet, it's coming up. And we've got bonus podcasts, episodes, meetups, virtual meetups, all that. Barrel picks are coming down the pipeline. So please just take a moment, click down in the description, go to patreon.com/whiskeynoobs and just review what I'm offering. And if you like it, then please sign up. And if you want to see this podcast continue to thrive, that is the absolute best way. There is no better way. Before I get into bottle shares, I do want to take a moment in case what's happening on the camera is not what I think is happening on the camera. What do I mean by that? You may have noticed if you're watching the video versions, the past couple episodes, there's been spots where it like gets brighter and dimmer and brighter and dimmer, and I've been working to fix that. Well, I just took like an hour and worked with ChatGPT to get all of my camera settings correct, because I'm not a camera guy. I have a nice-ish camera so that I can record this, and I haven't really used it to its fullest extent yet. So thanks to the power of AI, I think I have the settings right. So hopefully from here forward, the settings are going to be real nice and the exposure won't go up and then down and all that. But I say all that to say, if something gets real out of whack in this episode, that's why. But I want you to know that I am actively working on it. There's no way to test it aside from, I did come over here and do a bunch of different test runs, but when it comes to recording a full podcast, that's where you're going to find if something is wrong. So I did some troubleshooting and got at least the major kinks worked out. Hopefully it continues to work. So let's talk about bottle shares. What is a bottle share? I was introduced to the idea of a bottle share relatively late in my whiskey journey. I hadn't ever been to one until KBF, I think, Kentucky Bourbon Festival. So a bottle share, you'll hear people say, do you want to come to this bottle share? Are you going to that bottle share? You'll hear the term bottle share a lot. And all that means is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bunch of whiskey enthusiasts getting together and sharing their bottles. And the main idea, oh, okay, cool. Why even do that? Well, two reasons. First of all, because I want to get together with other whiskey lovers and talk to them about this thing that we both love so much. It makes the experience so much better. Just about any glass of whiskey tastes phenomenal when you're sharing it with other people who like are equally interested as you. It's awesome. Second of all, bottle shares are a great way to get to try things that you either will never get the chance to try or haven't had the chance to try yet, or you're not sure if you want to try it or not, because you can get together with other people who have different bottles from you. And the idea is, ideally, people will bring either their rare stuff or stuff that they don't think that you've had, and you'll get to try these other things. So like at Bottle Shares is where I've been able to establish my opinion on different whiskeys that I had never had before. People love to ask me, what do you think about Stag? What do you think about Pappy? What do you think? I don't have the money to buy those sorts of bottles, and I don't have the connections to buy those sorts of bottles at any reasonable price. But at Bottle Shares, I have been able to actually try them. I just want to make sure I'm recording. My recorder just made a noise. We're good. At Bottle Shares, I've actually been able to try them. And so thanks to Bottle Shares, I've been able to try these bottles that I might not get my hands on for years. And I've also been able to try bottles where I didn't know if I wanted to or not. I think like a Willet Purple Top is a great one. I tried that at a Bottle Share. It's absolutely delicious, but I don't think I would spend the absurd amount of money on it that they want for it. And so I know. And I've tried Stag Junior at Bottle Shares, and I really, really, really like Stag Junior. And so now I know if I find it for a semi-reasonable price, for me, for my palate, if I find it for a little over $100, maybe 150, and I have the money for it, I would buy it. Nowadays, that's almost a good price for it, but maybe that'll come down a little bit with the fact that the bourbon bubble's deflating a little bit. So anyways, I've learned a lot of really good lessons from Bottle Shares. And so they are an important part of the whiskey culture is what I'm really getting at. It's not something that you absolutely need to be involved in whiskey. I went years before ever having Bottle Shares, or the closest I would have to a Bottle Share is I would have friends over and do tastings with them of my selection. But the idea behind a Bottle Share is you get multiple people who have multiple selections and they bring their stuff, and then everybody gets to try new things. Whereas what I do most of the time is my friends aren't nearly as into whiskey as I am, and I'll have them over and they get to taste it, and it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoy that aspect of it too, because I love introducing people to things that they like. But I'm not getting the trying new things. So that's kind of the key difference between hosting a tasting versus having a Bottle Share. A Bottle Share is more of a mutual thing, which is obviously very hard to do if you don't have people in your life who are equally into whiskey as you. It can be very difficult. Nevertheless, I digress. That's the point of a Bottle Share, and that's why you would want to have one. Now let's talk about what you should bring. What should you bring to a Bottle Share? Throughout this entire conversation, what I want you to keep in mind is the goal of a Bottle Share is for you and the people with you to try new whiskeys. There's, of course, plenty of other goals, but when it comes down to like what you want to bring and why you want to bring it, that should be the main goal that you have in mind. So, the first disclaimer that I want to give, if you're bringing something to a Bottle Share, don't expect to bring it home unless it's something so special that you kind of limit it and you say, yeah, I want everybody to be able to try this, but I don't want to kill this entire bottle, and I don't want someone else to take it home with them. I want this to be mine. You can absolutely do that, and you can set up, like if you're bringing a Pappy 15 to a Bottle Share, of course, you don't have to kill that whole bottle, and you don't have to let somebody else take it home. But bring those things that are very important to you and that you're going to limit, but also bring some stuff that you don't necessarily care if you bring it home. Because the beauty of a Bottle Share, what can really happen is you can have this bottle that you took a gamble on, and maybe it was even kind of rare. Maybe you got like a Booker's, and Booker's is made in all these batches, and maybe it's a batch that you didn't really like. But that's a kind of a special bottle. Not everybody gets the chance to try it. Well, bring that then, because maybe somebody's going to try it and they're going to love it. And then you can say, you love it? Take it home with you. I don't want it. What do you have? Can I have one of your bottles? You don't even have to make it a trade if you don't want to. But I'm saying, like, that's the beauty of a Bottle Share. If you bring something that wasn't your forte and somebody else brings something that wasn't their forte and you all get to bring them home, that's awesome. So try to bring some stuff that you don't necessarily care if you take home. That is a really fun way to get your hands on new bottles. You can kind of trade them like Pokemon cards. Like it can be a little bit of a trade. It can just be a gift. I have plenty of bottles that I just give away because I either rolled the dice on them and did not like them. And I'm like, why would I keep this? Why would I hold on to it? I don't like it. Somebody else is going to appreciate it more. Or maybe it was gifted to me and I didn't like it. And then I'm really like, I didn't even spend any money on this. I just want rid of it. So no matter how it got into your selection, if you don't necessarily want it, give it on to somebody else. So those are great examples of bottles to take to a bottle share, especially if they're good. They're not like disgusting. Like, oh, I have this bottle of, Old Crow is not disgusting. It's just very inexpensive. I have this bottle of like bottom shelf, Old Crow, standard benchmark, whatever. Insert $10 whiskey here. I'll just bring that as my bottle. Don't do that. But if it's pretty good or objectively good and you just don't like it, then maybe bring it. Maybe it's a barrel pick that you bought that you weren't a fan of, something like that. So that's the first thing I would say put your bottles into two categories. Very special bottles that you want to take home with you. You don't want them to be sacrificed to the bottle share. Or bottles that you are okay with giving away. I would bring a little bit of both of those categories. And I usually bring 4 bottles to a bottle share, mainly because I have the, Aged in Ore travel caddy. Do I have it in here? I don't have it in here. It's that little, it looks like a bowling ball bag, but you carry around your bottles in it. And it's for 4. So I'm like, that's what I'm going to take to a bottle share. And then the other thing that I want to say is, when it comes to not taking bottles home with you, even some of that rarer stuff, try not to worry too much about it, because I promise you that is the best way to enjoy a bottle. What do I mean? Let me ground this in a real example. If you have a bottle that's very special to you, I'm going to call out myself here and say I love Penelope Havana. It's very sweet, and I understand that, but I really like it. And I still have it, and I haven't killed the whole thing yet. I actually haven't drank very much of it at all. But if I'm going to a bottle share with people who I think are going to appreciate it and people who I think are going to be excited about it, and I take it there and it's the star of the show, we've got 10 people at this bottle share and everybody has 1 or 2 glasses of it, and next thing you know, the whole bottle is gone. That's okay. That is probably the best way that I could have killed that bottle. I will probably look back and be happy that I did that, versus having it on my shelf for the next year and only I get to appreciate it. And it just it tastes better than the other bottles around it, but what good is it serving, really, right? Especially for me, if you're a very social person, which I tend to be, you're gonna find yourself enjoying it more, which I know is so hard to accept, because I'm the same way, where I'm like, but I don't want to let go of my Havana. I love this bottle. But if other people love it too, I want them to be able to enjoy it, and everybody's just gonna be happier that way. So that's my little disclaimer for not always taking bottles home with you, but also the very same breath, in that very same sentence, you are allowed to establish boundaries and be like, I am taking this bottle home, especially if you spend a bunch of money on it or if it's very special to you. You are absolutely allowed to be like, no, I'm not killing this bottle tonight. That's totally within your ability. So I want to be clear about that. Okay, so what should you take to a bottle share? So we've kind of vaguely established these 2 categories: things that you don't care if you take home, things that you absolutely care and you don't want to lose, and then those things kind of in the middle where you're like, I love this bottle, but I'm going to sacrifice it to the bottle share. So what types of bottles then? What should you be taking? So first, the most obvious, and we've kind of been getting at this whole time, rare stuff, right? Obviously, if you got, even if sometimes Blanton's is rare for people, if you have any of those Buffalo Trace allocated products, if you've got an Old Forester birthday bourbon, if you've got Pappy, if you've got BTAC, usually you don't get into those really, really high-end bottles. If you do, you're going to be the hero of the bottle share. But you get a lot of Stag Junior and, like I said, Willet Purple Top, and those kind of bottles that aren't necessarily full extreme unicorn status, but they're like mini unicorn status. So take that rare stuff, and if you have it, and if you're willing to share it, but, and there's a big but here, rare stuff can be really hard to come by. Rare stuff can be really hard to let go of. I totally understand that. And also, there are other really great options out there. There are other ways to bring bottles that people have never tried and may never be able to try. There are other ways to do that outside of just bringing the rarest bottle that you have. So, great example, super duper craft stuff. If you are going to a bottle share with people from out of town, people from different areas, KBF is a great example. All the content creators and our friends, we all get together, and we're from all across the United States, and we all bring stuff. When I do the KBF bottle share, I usually bring something that's very local, something that's Ohio. I can't remember which one I decided on this past year, but I know for sure like one I was thinking of was Leather and Oak, which I should have already come out with a review on Instagram of because I was really impressed by it. I thought it was so unique, and so I brought it, and I didn't end up bringing it. Long story. I didn't have room in my Aged in Ore bottle caddy. I remember now. But anyways, I was going to. Before I had brought Minglewood, which is just in Worcester, Ohio. They're not very highly distributed, and I love them. I think it's so unique and good, and they make really just clean, nice spirits coming from such a small craft distillery. So think about the super craft stuff. Now, this could fall into two camps. So I kind of already got at local stuff, like stuff that is local to you, that is very craft, not very highly distributed. I do that a lot. There's also super craft distilleries that you've visited. So if you've gone around, if you've gone to the Bourbon Trail, if you've been in a different state and there was a distillery there and you're like, hey, let me try this stuff. If you've gone overseas and, like in Ireland, there's micro distilleries. In Scotland, of course, there's distilleries that aren't distributed over here. Whatever. Germany, I think even Switzerland, there were some distilleries there that I didn't get the chance to try. But whatever, if you've been to a small craft distillery that's not very highly available, not available all throughout the United States, that's a great idea, a great option for a bottle to bring. And those are great candidates for those bottles where if you ended up not liking it that much, somebody there might fall in love with it. And then it's going to a good home who's actually going to appreciate it. So those are great candidates to bring. Those are actually probably my favorite bottle to bring, with the next one being what I was about to talk about next, and that is single barrels or barrel picks. So this could be just single barrels, where like Blanton's is a single barrel. If you have a bottle of Blanton's that you think this is way better than other Blanton's, or Henry McKenna 10-year. I know that Henry McKenna is one that's known for some barrels are a little better than others, and if you think you got a killer one, take that. Or if you have barrel picks, if it's a barrel that you picked, I take my own barrel picks a lot, which seems conceited, but also you're never. I think I still have it behind me. Yeah, these barrel picks, you're never going to be able to try them outside of if I bring them. So I like to bring them so people get the chance to try them. If you bought a barrel pick from a store local to you, if you bought a barrel pick from a content creator that you like, whatever, those make great bottles to bring because barrel picks usually are unique. I guess the last thing I'll say about single barrels or barrel picks for bottle shares is if you take one, I personally would try to take a unique one. I would try to take one that like tastes different. Sometimes a barrel pick, let's say a barrel pick, I just have Blue Note behind me. So let's just say you have a pick of Blue Note Juke Joint, uncut, unfiltered. Sometimes the barrel pick just tastes like a really good version of Blue Note. And that's fine. You could take that, but if everybody there has had Blue Note, they might not be super impressed. So then I would try to take what is a unique pick of, if I have a unique pick of Blue Note where I'm like my barrel pick, not to toot my own horn, it's not available anymore, so I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just using it as an example. It was very bubblegum flavored. Like it had this weird bubblegum taste to it. Reminded us of a certain bubblegum that sounds a lot like Boozy Fruit, which is why we named it Boozy Fruit. And so like that's one where I would take that because that's like a really unique expression and people could taste it. I actually did take it 2 years ago to KBF and people were like, oh my gosh, can I buy a bottle? Where's this at? And I was like, well, unfortunately it's sold out, but it was cool because they got to try it and they got to really enjoy that bottle. So I would try to stick to unique stuff. That's just me personally. But you can also cater to your audience a little bit. If you're going to be with people who, for better or worse, you know them, I know them, we all love them. Maybe some of you are one. If you're going to be at a bottle share with taters, then take some tater bottles. Like that's just the case, right? And so maybe a tater isn't going to appreciate some super unique weird bottle from a craft distillery. That's fine, that's just their thing. They're not into that. But cater to your audience, I guess is what I'm getting at. So like when I go to Kentucky Bourbon Festival, I know I'm with the whiskey nerds who are going to appreciate the weird stuff, the craft stuff, and that's what I try to do when I take stuff down to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival bottle share that we have. I keep saying this KBF bottle share. By the way, this isn't like an official event or anything. It's just like some of us get together at. I just realized it sounds like I'm talking about an event that you like buy tickets to. It's not that, but it's just the best example that I have of a bottle share because I don't have a lot of local friends who are really into whiskey, so I don't get to really host bottle shares. So yeah, anyhow, let's the last thing that I wanted to bring up, I almost forgot. The last type of a bottle that you can bring to a bottle share that I think is a good kind of sneaky one, kind of like people might not think of this, I would bring underrated bottles. So when I say underrated, I mean a bottle that you think is a lot better than the credit that it gets. So a great example of this, one of my favorite underrated bottles, Cooper's Craft Barrel Reserve 100 proof, I think is just phenomenal, and more importantly, unique for its price range. It's only like $33 or something like that. And it's unique, it's tasty, it's full bodied. And for that reason, a lot of people probably overlook it. And so then if I take it and they try it, they can be like, this is way better than I thought it was. And then either they'll take that bottle home or like Cooper's Craft's $30. They'll be like, dude, I'm buying one of these next time I go to the liquor store. So underrated bottles can be a really fun one if you especially think this is way better than people give it credit for. That can also be a great conversation starter because you can be like, yeah, I brought this bottle of Cooper's Craft Barrel Reserve. And people can be like, oh, I've had that before. That's like, yeah, that's a pretty average bottle, right? That's not even very expensive. And you can be like, listen, I know why you think that, and I understand that. Try it again and really appreciate it for what it is. And then they might try it and be like, okay, you know what? I'm actually blown away. I've done this with plenty of bottles. I didn't appreciate Woodford Reserve for the longest time until I did a blind tasting with it. And so you could be that person who convinces them like, no, this is actually really good for being a budget bottle. And that also just makes for great conversation and even great debate. It can be like, well, I personally actually think that bottle's terrible. And then you can talk about why and why not. And it's just it's a really good conversational topic. Because if you're just doing rare stuff or you're just doing unique stuff, that'll get you most of the way there. But the conversation's mostly going to be like, I can't believe how rare this is. I can't believe how unique this is. So if you want to like kind of throw a wrench in there and have a little bit of almost debate or interesting conversation, underrated bottles can be a really fun one. And then the vice versa of that would be a bottle that you think is totally overrated. And you're like, I actually don't think this is that good. I think we should all try it in this context with all these other bottles and see what we think. And that can really help you, first of all, validate your opinions. It can help you get used to sharing your opinions. I know that's something that can be really hard in the whiskey world. It can be really scary, but it kind of challenges you to share your opinions, to be like, I actually think this bottle is better than people give it credit for, or I actually think this bottle is not as good as people give it credit for. And that can give you a chance to kind of throw your opinions out there and see what people think. And that also just spurred an idea in my head. I wanted to move on, but I'm gonna stand here for a second and say, bottle share is a great opportunity to share tasting notes in a low stress environment. Why do I say that? Well, I personally, especially as a creator, I am terrified of sharing my tasting notes in person most of the time. I'm very bad at it. I'm very bad at speaking up and saying what I think, and I usually feel that I have like more to lose almost if I share the tasting notes. If I say something dumb, it's like, I thought this guy was supposed to be a whiskey reviewer. Don't people send him bottles of whiskey and he's saying this? The fact of the matter, and the thing that you notice when you go to bottle shares and things, and I've only gotten better at this like literally the past year, say whatever it is that comes to mind, because nobody there knows better than anybody else. If you would be hard pressed to come across somebody who's going to say, this does not taste like that. What are you talking about? You would be hard pressed to find somebody with the guts to correct you, because you realize once you say tasting notes like that in a group, you really quickly realize we all feel the same way. We are all like, oh, I don't want to be the one to correct him. If he's getting it, who am I to tell him? Because that's just the truth. That's how taste buds work. We all taste different things. We all get reminded of different things. Whiskey is so memory based, where like you're not tasting cinnamon. What you're tasting is, this reminds me of cinnamon pine cones from Christmas. It's all like, a lot of it is just memory based and what it's reminding you of. And so you'll realize when you get into groups like that and you start saying stuff like that, nobody wants to correct anybody, which is good. Like that's objectively what makes it such an accepting community. But my point being, take that opportunity to take some stabs. And once you realize I can kind of say whatever I want and people aren't going to correct me. Now, if you say, this tastes like a piece of cheese that sat on blacktop for a week and then got coated in vanilla icing, people are probably going to make fun of you. But like in general, and if you approach it in the funniest way, like even if you get really specific, I love to do this where I'll be like, all right, hear me out. This is really weird. This is just bear with me. A piece of cheese that was on blacktop for a week and coated in vanilla ice cream. Like if you approach it that way, people aren't going to care and they're not going to think badly of you. So I say all that to say, I know how intimidating it is to express yourself, especially expressing your tasting notes and things. But don't be afraid to take stabs at it. And especially more often than you realize, you'll probably hit the nail on the head. I had that a couple times at KBF where I'm talking to a distillery and I'm like, at KBF, by the end of the day, you do have a little liquid courage. Even if you're as careful as I am and you're dumping some of your samples and you're drinking lots of water, you get a little bit of liquid courage by the end of the day. And I started taking stabs and be like, oh my gosh, this is like cinnamon coated nuts. Like this is like candied nuts. And you'd have distillers be like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you'd be surprised how often you do hit the nail on the head. And when you don't, when you totally miss, it doesn't really matter because people are like, well, if you say you're tasting that, you're probably tasting that. It's probably your taste buds. So I wanted to pause there and say, just take the stabs at it. The more you do it, the easier it will get. I promise. Now, a couple of tips for setting up a bottle share, a couple of things to keep in mind. First, most important, like I can't stress this enough, have lots of water available. Either have cups and a spigot that everybody knows, like this is drinking water, my refrigerator water is drinking water, whatever. Maybe even have a jug of water nearby that everybody can get their drinks out of. Have bottles of water on the table. Water. I cannot say that enough. And don't forget to like encourage it and be like, hey, grab some water, you want some water? So have water available. Use that water to pace yourself. So set aside a little bit of time. You're probably not going to host a very good or compelling bottle share in an hour. People aren't going to be able to try multiple things in that amount of time. They're not going to be able to really fully appreciate them in that amount of time. And they're probably going to accidentally get trashed in that amount of time. So make sure you leave time to really pace yourself. Scale the time of the bottle share to the size of the bottle share. If you're going to have 50 bottles there, try to set aside as much time as you can. If it's you and two buddies and everybody's bringing 2 bottles, maybe an hour, 2 hours is going to be more than enough time. So try to pace yourself and set some kind of a pace for what you're doing. Don't forget to drink water in between. That can really help pace you in terms of your drinking as well. Okay, I just tried this. I did appreciate it, but now let me just drink this full cup of water for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes of conversation, and that'll help pace you. Also have spittoons available, and this is like maybe a more controversial one, and this is one of those things that is, I'll die on this hill no matter what. Spittoons are important and they're helpful, and they have accidentally become like weirdly taboo in the past few years. Anytime I post about a spittoon on Instagram, I get people commenting that they're for insert expletive here. Spittoons are for, insert expletive, or they are a waste of alcohol. They're a disgrace. You're wasting the whiskey. That's like a relatively new attitude. Spittoons are so industry standard. Any competition where they're judging whiskeys, most distillers when they're blending whiskeys, when they're picking barrels, when they're testing their whiskey, doing quality control, everybody's spitting it out. That is a very standard thing for truly sitting and enjoying a glass of whiskey, is to spit it out. And if you're doing a bottle share where you're going to have lots of different options, you want to spit out the first 2 sips of everything, because I don't want to drink it until I know that I like it. Or maybe you spit out certain samples and then you find one that you like and then you sip on that one for the rest of the night. Whatever. Let's normalize spittoons. Can we quit acting like it's weird? It's kind of gross. You have to spit it out into a thing, but that's it. And it can be as simple as, you don't have to go on Amazon and buy a fancy looking spittoon. It can be as simple as, ask everybody there, hey, bring an empty water bottle. Drink this water before we get started. Everybody finish your bottle of water, and that is your spittoon for the night. We're going to write our names on them. Or you can get one of the big center of the table spittoons, which I understand that's a little bit gross because you're like hovering over each other's spit to spit in it. I get that. Whatever method you use, you can even use solo cups. And then what I do, if I have to use a solo cup while I'm recording, I'll take the solo cup, and then at the end of the night, I'll dump it in the toilet, and then I'll flush it, because, if you dump it in your sink, it's a little bit nasty. Dumping it in a toilet, then you flush it and it's gone. So Maybe don't do that if you're going to have 30 people and you have a septic system. You might screw it up. But if you're going to have a few people or whatever, say, hey, everybody, dump your spittoon out when you leave, or take it home with you if it seals and dispose of it at your house. Or if it's a sealed water bottle, let's all throw them in the outside trash, whatever. But don't make it weird. Spittoons don't need to be weird. They are actually extremely helpful. And listen, if nothing else, they are the best means for being able to fully appreciate the highest number of glasses of whiskey. You can drink, if you're spitting it out properly and you're not accidentally drinking some of it, you can drink a lot of different whiskeys before you even feel a slight buzz, because you're ingesting such little tiny amounts of alcohol through your saliva or the little bit that accidentally you swallow. So I guess the moral of the story is, let's normalize spittoons. Don't be afraid to use them. Don't be afraid to ask people to bring empty bottles. Or if you don't want to ask people, if that's a little scary, I get it. Set the standard, man. Have an empty bottle ready and spit into it. And people will be like, oh, well, that's a really good point. So that's something that I was nervous about for a long time, and I've really tried to put my foot down on. When I did my most recent tour of Whiskey House at Kentucky Bourbon Festival, they had spittoons available for us, and I did. I was like, I'm spitting, because I'm not going to be that guy who's super buzzed this early in the morning. And I know it's weird and embarrassing, but it doesn't need to be. It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be at all. So think of it this way. Most of the people in the whiskey world that you highly respect probably use spittoons more regularly than they actually drink the whiskey. Most like distillers, tasters, quality control people, blenders, judges, they're spitting out more samples than they're drinking, at least while they're working or around working hours. So just keep that in mind. Okay. The very last thing, and this is like the fun little twist that you can have, is things to pair. If you're doing it outside, maybe have some cigars with you, have snacks, have palate cleansers, have little pieces of chocolate that people can have that are going to help cleanse their palate, and maybe it'll pair weirdly with this whiskey. When I did a tasting at Sagamore Spirits over the summer, they had this chocolate that had orange infused into it, which is a pretty common thing where you have like orange peel chocolate or orange chocolate. And when you ate it and then drank, I forget which sample it was, but one of them, it was wild. It totally changed the sample. It was really fun. And then I actually wasn't told to do this, but I was like, I wonder what happens if I eat this and drink this other sample. And it was disgusting. And I was like, well, that's why they didn't tell me to do that. So it's fun. It's like a really interesting little experiment to do. So snacks, palate cleansers, totally underrated. They can totally change the vibe of the night. And also having snacks can help keep everybody sober, keep a little something in your stomach so that you're not just eating or drinking on an empty stomach. So don't be afraid to throw out some snacks, even if it's just chips, trail mix. Chocolate is a great one for palate cleansing. Lemon juice I like for palate cleansing. Maybe that's a little bit harder, but maybe like some lemon water. I know people, I think, have said Topo Chico is a great palate cleanser. Maybe some seltzers or something like that. Non-alcoholic seltzers, obviously, unless you're really trying to tie one on. But something like that can really change the vibe of the night and make things a little bit more fun. So don't be afraid to do it. And maybe, I'm just thinking of this right now, that'd be a fun theme for a bottle share. Is like, hey, everybody bring something weird that you want to try and see how it pairs with whiskey. Maybe it's a really weird chocolate. Maybe it's like the one episode we did a long time ago with Justin as a guest. We did the ginger that you eat with as a palate cleanser to sushi. Maybe it's something really weird off the wall like that. I don't know, but that could be fun. That's all I've got for bottle shares, though. We're going to go into the Q&As, so I do have some Q&As to answer from the patrons, but the moral of the story is have fun with it. I mean, bottle shares are so much fun. That's why I was able to do this whole episode about it so easily. Most of this I did like barely even following my notes, just because it's so much fun and you can really put twists on it and change it to whatever you want it to be. And if you're having trouble, if you don't have friends who are really into whiskey and you don't have friends who have selections of whiskey, whatever, a really easy way to do a bottle share is to get friends who are at least mildly interested in whiskey and say, how about we all go out, we spend between price limit and price limit on a bottle. We spend between $30 and $60 on a bottle. We spend between $50 and $55 on a bottle, whatever price limit you want to set. What if we all do that? And then we meet up and we all get to try each other's. And then we all take a little tasting of each. That's a really easy way to do a bottle share. So don't think that you have to have all these friends, these huge selections in order to be able to do it. And that's another thing of what I mean when I say tailor it to your audience. So anyhow, that is really no matter what, you're going to enjoy the bottle share and you're going to get the point of whiskey, which is why I titled the episode that. Hopefully the title stays that way. Otherwise, you're like, what do you mean the whole point of whiskey? What are you talking about? That is supposed to be the title of the episode. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into some Q&As. So, patrons are able to ask questions, and I will answer any of those questions on the show. So I got a couple of questions this week from some of the patrons. If you're on the Patreon, you can submit these through the Discord. If you're not on the Patreon, every single tier gets to submit these questions. So you can join the lowest tier if you want, and you'll be able to submit questions for the podcast whenever you want. You shoot them over, I put them on whatever script is being recorded next, and then I answer them. So let's jump into a couple of these. The first question that I got from a patron was charred barrel cups or glass cups. I have a prop for this and I forgot it, so I'll be right back. Okay, so as mentioned, the first question was charred barrel cups or glass cups. So a charred barrel cup is what you see here. So this is actually a whiskey grail. And this is a cup that is made from, I think it's white oak, and it is charred on the inside, which might be hard to see. I do have some whiskey in there, so I don't want to spill it, but maybe here you can see the char if you're watching the video version. And they char the inside of it. And these are getting to be somewhat more common. So there are a couple of different brands that output cups like this. And the idea is it's charred so you get more of an infusion of that char, that barrel flavor into the whiskey. And like I said, there's a few different brands out there. This one is the Whiskey Grail. They did send me this cup, and they didn't ask for me to do anything with it. So I've had it for a long time. And I feel bad saying this, but I've actually never tried it. I just haven't had the time. I haven't come across it. If you know anything about me, you know that I've moved over the past year and had a lot going on in my life. So all that being said, I'm going to try it here for the first time and see what I think. So I put some Cooper's Craft Barrel Reserve, mainly because that was sitting out on my bar and I just talked about it. So I know full and well what Cooper's Craft Barrel Reserve tastes like. I'm going to do a real quick tasting from this Whiskey Grail. By the way, whiskeygrail.com. They're not paying me. They're not associated with me, but I wanted to shout them out because this seems like some pretty nice workmanship. I'm going to do a quick tasting with it and see what I think. I don't know. Okay, so I would say almost definitively, there's a little difference. It's not horribly noticeable. I don't think your average person will be like, whoa, oh my gosh, this is so different. But it's definitely a little sweeter, a little bit oakier, a little bit more cinnamon type flavor. So it's impacting the whiskey. Now back to the main question, which should you use? Charred barreled cups or whiskey, like glass whiskey cups like a Glencairn? The person who asked this question was newer to whiskey. You're probably watching, hopefully. They were a little newer to whiskey, and so the advice that somebody else in the Discord gave them, which I fully agree with, was since you're newer, stick with glass cups so that you can taste what the distiller actually intended, and you can get good at tasting the notes of whiskeys. I fully agree with that. Could not agree more. If you are trying to get the notes of a whiskey or figure out, do I like high rye bourbon? Do I like wheated bourbon? Do I like this brand or that brand? What is that nutty note that Jim Beam is supposed to give me? If you're learning those sorts of things, stick with glass cups. Anytime you're doing a serious tasting, stick with glass cups. Anytime, even as an experienced person, you're doing a serious tasting, stick with glass cups. That said, these are fun. I think these type of cups are fun and interesting, and they add something to it. Like I said, I'd never even used this before, so it's not like I'm like this huge believer in them, and I use them all the time. But I have used a similar product. I think it's called a booze bag or a bourbon bag, and it looks like a bag of tea that you steep in water to make tea, but it's actually chips of wood that are charred, and you steep it in your whiskey, and it adds some flavor to it. And I thought the same thing about those. I'm like, this is changing the flavor. This is not what the distiller wanted me to taste, but it's interesting, it's fun, it's different. So that's kind of where I put these. I put them in that category of being fun, but definitely not if you're trying to do a serious side-by-side tasting or pull certain notes from it. But on a random Friday night, just as a glass to have something a little different, absolutely. I think it's really interesting. I applaud the guys at Whiskey Grill for coming up with this. I don't know if they invented the original one or not, but they were the first that I ever saw. So I applaud them for coming up with it. I think it's really unique. And there are other ones out there, like I said. I don't know. The question that I would have is, like, what holds this together? Is there glue in there? And if there is, like, is that safe? I have no idea. So I don't know. But I do know that it's really interesting. And just based on the tasting that I just did, it's neat. It's fun. It's different. Whatever. It's kind of like a super unique whiskey with a weird finish or something. It's fun. That's all I have to say. The next question we've got for the Q&A, this is the last one, is what are some grain to glass distilleries that are worth checking out? So if you don't know what grain to glass means, that means a distillery that literally goes from grain to the drinkable product, as opposed to a distillery who buys whiskey and then bottles it and then sells it, or buys different whiskeys and then blends them and then sells them, or buys a whiskey, puts a specific finish on it and sells it. Those ones that I was just mentioning are non-distilling producers. They're buying other people's whiskey, and I have nothing against it, because if they're doing fun stuff to it and making an awesome product, like Barrel does this all the time, Penelope does this a lot sometimes, if they're doing stuff like that, then hey, that's awesome. I enjoy that. But that is not grain to glass. Another example that wouldn't be grain to glass necessarily would be if you have a contract distillery doing it for you. So these would be people who they might even have their own recipe, but then they'll go to a Bardstown Bourbon Company type setup and say, hey, can you produce this recipe for me? That's called contract distilling. Just did an episode with Craig Beam of Jackson Purchase Distillery that is mostly a contract distiller. So those are some of your other options. Grain to glass is we buy the grain, we distill it, or maybe we even farm the grain. So that's kind of the extra grain to glass, is we farm the grain. But a lot of times it's more like we buy local grains. Then we mash it, we distill it, we age it, and we finish it, do whatever we're going to do to it, and put it in a bottle, and then it's ready to drink. So that's what grain to glass means. So what are some good ones? I jotted down a few ideas because I didn't want to forget. I get to these types of questions and I always forget. So these are just the few that came to mind when I was thinking about this question. Sagamore Spirits I really enjoy. They're not entirely grain to glass yet, but they're working on getting more towards grain to glass. And I really enjoy their stuff. Even as they're incorporating more of their stuff, it seems to be getting better, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes distilleries go from sourced to grain to glass because they buy that sourced whiskey to get upfront capital, get upfront money, and make sales, and they slowly work in their distilled product. And sometimes it gets worse. I think with Sagamore, it's getting better. I think they're doing something right. So Sagamore for sure. Frey Ranch, I know a lot of people really, really love. I've had a couple of very impressive expressions from them. I've had a couple that I wasn't a huge fan of, and honestly, it's been so long that I can't remember which was which. Other than I just had their 5-grain recipe, which includes oats as one of the grains, and I thought that was really good. I thought that was really unique and good. But I remember there was one of their bottles that I wasn't super impressed with. And then I'm pretty sure their rye I really liked. So they are grain to glass, and they've got some great expressions, some that aren't for me, but just look up reviews of them and give them a try. Redwood Empire has some grain to glass expressions. Grizzly Beast is grain to glass. My mustache is annoying me. It's poking me in the nose right now. Grizzly Beast from Redwood Empire is grain to glass. I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing. Rocket Top is grain to glass. I think that is fantastic. And Haystack Needle, it is grain to glass, at least according to Google, because I haven't had it before. And I've never had it, so I can't give an opinion on it. So I don't know much about it other than I've read that it is grain to glass, and I've never had it myself. I want to try it here soon. And then the last one is Hard Truth Distilling. I believe this is only for some of their labels. I think they have some that are not grain to glass, but I could be wrong about that. But they do have grain to glass stuff, and I love Hard Truth, so that was literally one of my barrel picks. I really enjoy Hard Truth stuff. So those are a few brands to kind of put you in that path, but there's lots of other brands that are grain to glass. I encourage you to do some looking, but also don't consider that the end-all be-all. I think grain to glass is a really good milestone for a distillery. So I love to see a distillery put out something grain to glass that has previously been sourced, because that's all right, you got there, you aged your own product, you were able to put it out. I think that is awesome. But I will non-discriminatorily, I don't even know if that's a word, buy sourced whiskey, contract distilled whiskey, grain to glass whiskey. If you're putting out good product, I'm happy with it, as long as your advertising is not being misleading. That's where I draw the line. If you said this is mom and pop's recipe from pre-prohibition and you're just buying something off of MGP, then I'm probably not going to support your product too much. Just don't lie to people. It's that easy. But yeah, so those are some options, but also don't make that the only, possible option. But it is fun to experiment with and really see what their flavor is of that distillery. So those are all the questions for this week, guys. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Thank you to all the patrons who submitted questions. I'm going to leave you guys with learn to drink, drink to learn. Hi there. If you're still here, I'm going to assume that you enjoyed this episode of Whiskey Noobs, in which case, please consider subscribing in whatever app it is you use to get your podcasts from. Also, please like it or leave a rating or review if you have the opportunity to do that in whatever app it is that you choose. And lastly, please just take a quick look at the Patreon down in the show notes. It goes a very long way to support this show. Please, most importantly, always drink responsibly, and in case nobody else tells you today, God bless. Cheers.